Hi there, Rika Mason here, and we're just starting the primary mathematics course for the Graduate Diploma of Education Primary at Tabor, Victoria, Semester 2, 2015. So welcome to the course, welcome to the program. What I'm going to do today is to just go through a couple of very important tools that we're going to use quite a bit in this course and in other courses in the college, called our learning plans. I'm going to go fairly quickly through them so that you've got a record of how we like to have our learning plans organised here at Tabor. And you'll see in the maths website, the very first part, which is for today's class on Tuesday the 21st of July, where we're going to talk about approaches to mathematics teaching and teaching for meaning. We're going to just start in with this area of learning plans, because you're going to need these learning plans certainly on your practicum, but also in this class as well as others. So we go down to the bottom where there are resources for you, and I might just click off my editing so that it looks like basically what you're going to have. So we're going to start with the blank form at the moment, and this is the form that you'll be able to download and fill in for the various learning plans that you're going to need. So I'll just increase that a little bit. Okay, first part is quite straightforward. You can, your name, you make up a supervising teacher's name, school date, etc., etc. Now, for our purposes at the moment, you're going to have a year level or a grade level, and the number of students in that. In some of your assignments, you'll actually be given a profile. It'll be for grade 4 or grade 2, and there are so and so many children and so many children with special needs, and this child has this and this child has that. So just watch out for that. But if you're in a classroom for your practicum, straightforward, whatever is in front of you, whatever grade of children are in front of you. And then we have here a variety of headings, and each one needs some kind of a filling in. And some of these are far more they're all important, but you fill them in different ways, and all of them should go to help you to hold your lesson together. The important part of a lesson is the planning more so than the delivery, because you'll plan something really well. The delivery of it will move around a little bit depending on the children and the pace and all that kind of stuff, and then you reevaluate the lesson, you replan. If you think that the delivery of the lesson is the most important part, what you do is that you will lose track of the fact that there's a curriculum that sort of keeps moving along, that the children need to move along to, and you'll also perhaps forget that there's stuff the kids should know quite well before they start, and you sort of lose this before and after and direction without some really good planning and organisation. It's a little bit like, I want to build a house, I just want to build a house, so let's get some bricks, let's put some bricks up, I'm going to build a house. Well, you've got to really have a good plan and why you're doing this and why you're doing that. It's that kind of thing. So this first section here is your topic or your focus. It could be something like, the supermarket or stars, or, a trip, the excursion to the sea, or percentages or money, or whatever you're going to do, whatever your broader focus is for the series of lessons that this one is a part of. This Auswell's description or Australian curriculum description is extremely important. It actually means that you have to come out specifically out of those documents. Now, in our case for mathematics, you might as well just stick with Australian curriculum, because they dovetail together. Australian curriculum has been settled with mathematics for some time. So we really need to know a grade level and the aspect of the Australian curriculum you're going to teach out of. And then if there is any essential prior learning that the children need to know. So if you're going to start talking about multiplying improper numbers, or improper fractions, I should say, with normal numbers or something like that, then the children have got to have an understanding of what an improper fraction is in the first place. They've probably got to have a good understanding of what multiplication is, that it's multiple times of. And so the essential prior learning is just a few lines as to what the kids really need to know before they go into something. If part of your teaching strategy is that the children access a particular software or a particular game or something along those lines, part of the essential learning might simply be knowledge of that particular software or experience with it or the game or whatever. Now, probably your most important aspect of your whole learning plan is what we call here the student learning outcomes. These have got to be quite specific, and I've got some that I've prepared earlier to come through later. A student learning outcome is not at the end of the lesson the children will have completed the worksheet. Okay, not interested in that. And I want to see a differentiation in them. So every lesson that you give to me and to my colleagues will need to have somewhere like 3 differentiated groups. Okay? A group that's sort of on the line of where you're supposed to be, you're mid-grade 3 if you're doing grade 3. You'll always have some kids who are working at a grade 4, even grade 5 level. So there's something for the advanced kids, something for the regular kids at the regular level, the standard level, and then there will always be some children who are working at a slower pace. And you're actually working at least in 3 classes, at least in 3 lessons for every lesson. And each of those students, each of those groups needs to have a specific learning outcome. Now, they'll all be related to the topic, so you're not going to have one group learning percentages and one group learning multiplication and one group learning addition. You're actually going to have, we're all going to do something in terms of multiplication, so the advanced children will have perhaps more advanced numbers, or they will be multiplying by 2 digits. Your standard children might be multiplying by 1 digit, and your children who are still working at a different level may be working on multiple addition, 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, something along those lines. But those need to be very carefully identified, because what I'm going to want to be able to see is the trail from the learning outcome through the lesson plan. So what are the activities that you're going to do to take each group through their lessons and then end up at the end. And in maths, it's got to be quite specific. Okay, I really need to see differentiation. This section here where it says modification with children with additional needs, there will be children in your classroom who may have autism, who may be funded for physical disabilities or whatever. There may be, blindness or something along those lines. Those children have a modification that simply allows them to access the regular class. So it might be that they have to sit up the front. It might be that you might have to re-explain something in a quieter or a more specific way. It may be that instead of children working from the board, examples from the board if that's what you're going to do, to actually being given a sheet of paper and having the work there, because they just can't manage that kind of far-sighted, near-sighted thing, something along those lines. They are still in a particular learning group. So the child with visual impairment may still be in your advanced group, but you're going to give them access because they're going to be sitting closer to you, or the stuff's going to be given to them on a A3 sheet instead of A4 sheet, or something along that that line. Okay, so I need to see where the child is in the learning, which will be focused in the student learning outcomes, and also where the child is in terms of their special needs, whether it's English as a second language, and what you as a teacher are going to put in place so that they simply access the learning. The next one is integration of ICT, information communications technology. I do want to see you thinking very carefully about using iPads, using computers, using smartphones, and perhaps, maybe not the smartphones so much in primary schools, the smart boards, absolutely, the interactive whiteboards, games, all sorts of different things that can be used. Now, don't forget things like cameras, things like videos, things like the internet itself, the broader internet that can be used in schools with their own caches in it and so forth. So how are you going to use digital technologies to enhance children's mathematics, in particular mathematics learning, and then whatever material students and teachers will need for that. In the next part is simply the sequence, is the delivery of the program. How are you planning to deliver it? And you'll see that along the side here, there are 5 big words. And they're a good set of words. And if you click into this link here, of course, all will be well. There we go. This will open this up to the E5 instructional model. This is quite a common framework for developing learning planning of learning in schools. This comes directly from the Department of Education and Training, and it's a helpful sort of checklist as you plan a learning activity with your students. So I'll let you play with that yourself. We'll go through some of that in class. So that's what it's based on. So here I want you to think about, and it doesn't have to go exactly level by level. This just helps you and prompts you about the 5 areas. One is to engage student, to actually get their attention, to get their to purpose them, and it can be through a game, or it can be through, with the little ones, maybe through a song or through a quick test or something like that, that engages them, that hooks them, that loosens their capacity and their interest in what you're teaching them. Now, one thing that we often miss is the area of exploration. We're usually so keen to teach and get it right and be direct as teachers, and that's a good thing. But also we need to give children a chance to explore so that they make mistakes, ask their own questions, and perhaps prompt you to teach them in a different way. Straightforward explanation, whether it's you explaining something or perhaps a video explaining something, or perhaps students explaining things to one another. But this is done because of is a very important part. To elaborate means to actually think in a more broader way about something. So if 2 and 2 equals 4, we assume, so does that mean that if I have $2 and I want $4, how much more do I need in my hand? And you're actually sort of turning the questions around a little bit for the children. And if they're manipulating materials, they should be able to help you with that and become a little bit more complex in the thinking. So it's not just 2 plus 2 equals 4, but if that's the case and I've got a 4, what else do I need? Can I also do it in a different way? What if I have 4 and I don't want to have 2, but maybe I've got 1. What else do I need to add to that to equal 4? It just sort of makes it a little bit more complex and pushes the children's thinking out a little bit. And the other part for you is extremely important is that you evaluate all the way, and you need to plan your evaluation of what the children are learning and what they're not learning as you're teaching them. And evaluation needs to be often, most of it's kept in our hearts and our minds, I can tell you. But also, what kind of note taking are you going to do? Are you going to keep portfolios with the kids? Are you just going to make small notes in your work program or in a database or something like that? How are you going to either both evaluate what the children are doing so that you can teach well the next time, and how are you going to record that so that you've got data over a longer period of time? And you'll see that there are 2 columns in this section, very clearly what the teacher does, but I also want you to think about what the students are doing at that time. And this is a very important column because a lot of people will just concentrate on what the teacher does, and it becomes like a little script. Well, first of all, we have our story, and then we do our counting, and then we do our worksheets, and then I mark them, and then we all sit on and you're not really sure what the kids are doing. And sometimes you might find that the kids are just sitting quietly a lot of the time, or are writing quietly, which is okay. But is there a mixture of activities for the children? And is what the children doing actually going to help them achieve the student learning outcomes that you're interested in them having? Okay, and then we're going to have a review and closure. A review is just a few seconds, a few minutes of what did you learn, or who can tell me the next number from, or if I multiply by 25, how many tens have I got in that? Just a really quick recap with the class, or with you might say, somebody from red group, come out and tell us what you did today. Somebody from green group, come out and tell us what you did today. Some kind of a review, and to close that lesson off for that time, and then to transition into a next lesson. Very important transition. Do the children pack their things up into their tubs? Do they stand at the door ready to go to art? Do they get their lunches out? What's the transition period? Because that's where a lot of children, our teachers, lose their kids. Now, not literally, but lose the behaviour. If I go into back here, so that's the learning plan, and that's what you'll actually be writing up yourself. But if I go to this learning plan here, the format with explanatory notes, this hopefully will tell you, very similar to what I've just told you, but you might be able to help yourself with this a little bit more. So I've just missed out on all the class stuff. I've just gone straight into this area here. So in this case, as an example, the topic focus is, in this case, might be the solar system, telling the time, retelling fairy tales, whatever it's going to be. Your Auswell's description is you actually copy and paste the relevant section, and we'll talk more about both Auswell's and Australian curriculum, but I really want you guys in mathematics simply to concentrate on Australian curriculum rather than Auswell's. And I'll show you how to do that in class, and then you look around in the Auswell's area. Okay. For this one, as you can see, I have written for 5 learning outcomes. Okay? Very important. So your learning outcomes need to be written for 2 reasons. One is the diverse learning groups or individuals in your class. Okay, so I'm really looking at the children in their learning abilities. Those that are at a standard, regular standard, those that are above and those that are below. All classes will have a stretch. Most primary classes will have a stretch of up to 5 classes. So if you're grade 3, you'll have someone learning in grade 4 and 5, and some people learning in grade 3, even grade 1. And your job is to teach them all at the level that they're at. And then also your intentions for the children's learning based on the AusVels or the Australian curriculum descriptions. So, for example, the topic I'm going to do here will be something like counting by tens, and you'll see that at the end of the day, the advanced group will count forwards and backwards by tens orally and in written form, from 1 to 100 starting from any number. Okay, so that's what you're going to work on, and that's what these 2 or 3 or 4 kids are going to be able to do for you at the end. Your middle group or your standard group will be counting forwards in orally and in written form with numbers starting from 0 to 5. See the difference? It's not a big difference, but there is some difference in complexity. And your supported group, the children will count by tens forward, and they will always start with either a 10 or a 20 or a 30 or something like that. Okay. Katrina, who is English as a second language, is in the advanced group. Okay, so we know that this girl who has special needs, and her special needs has to do with English as a second language, but her mathematics is part of the advanced group. And Toby, who's just a young boy who's just struggling with numeracy altogether, is in the supported group. Okay, additional needs. He just doesn't quite get maths at all. And so in this section, you'll need to, in the modification for children with additional needs, you'll need to articulate how the identified children will meet the learning outcomes identified in the section below. Okay, so here for Katrina, she's in the advanced group, so she'll do that work, but she will also ensure that she hears Katrina count aloud and pointing to the written form as she does so. In other words, you as the teacher are going to support her oral language and her English in this. And Toby, who's just not quite there in terms of mathematics, you're going to make sure that he's going to use concrete materials and drawings to complete the work. And you may in fact be insisting that he does that, even though some of those other supporting children can move a little bit beyond that. Okay, integration of ICT. That's where you're going to consider all aspects of ICT that could be useful, and teacher and student materials. Okay, now this section here, I haven't given you an example. We'll give examples as we go along another time. But this section I just want to be very careful about. This side here, describes what you do. The section is the plan of action that you're intending to take the children through. Okay, and in this section, the student learning outcomes must be accounted for. All right, so there has to be a very clear link between what you've written here for each of those children or groups, what you've written here for these specific children, and then what actually happens. You can't do something that's different, that doesn't lead to that end. And it has to include assessment processes. How are you going to assess the kids? Okay, so the 5 E's will help you plan the children's learning journey. They're not directly linear. It's hard to put them into 5 distinct boxes. They're elements of they're elements of good learning experiences. Okay, so you have a bit of this and a bit of that, and in the end you end up with something that's worthwhile. As a rule, you'd firstly engage the children, linking with their previous learning. You give them a chance to explore, and you're opening up open-ended and open-handed questions, and also maybe encouraging the children to ask those sorts of questions that might start with a wonder, or maybe if, or I'd like to try, or something along those lines. Here we go into the explanation and the elaboration side of it. And this is the evaluative side of it. You need to be able to explain, how do you know the children have achieved or not achieved the objectives you've given them? I'm not interested in if the children are quiet or not. I'm interested in, throughout the process, have the children done this? Have the advanced children shown you that they can count forwards and backwards, etc., etc.? Has the middle group shown you that they can do such and such? Has the supported group shown you in whatever way? And how are they going to show you? Are they going to simply tell you? That's fine. Are they going to do a worksheet? That's fine. But how are you going to know? Very important. And these might be shown at the end of the lesson or woven through it. They could be children's writing, they could be your notes, children's answers to your questions, or their contribution to formal or informal discussions. And then how will you bring the children to a conclusion in their own learning? What have they learnt? What can they pull the big parts together and hold them together? And then a very important, how do they plan and pack up and move on actions? Okay. We'll go over these again and again, but you will need these for several of your activities with me, and certainly they will be part of any practicum that you do with us. Okay, thank you.